All right, it's about that time, so I will start the event today. So, good evening and welcome to Linden Hall's Ask a Student live Q&A. My name is Farah and I will be moderating the session tonight. So before we start, I'd like to go over some introductions for me and then my peers. So I'll start. So my name is Farah. I am in 11th grade and I am a day student here at Linden Hall. This is my 6th year at Linden Hall, and I have truly been having a great time here at Linden Hall. Um, Inside of Linden Hall, there are some extracurriculars I take part in, such as student council, Diversity Council, Club Med, um, NHS, and Eco Club. And Anastasia, if you'd like to take it away after that with your introduction.
Hi, I'm Anastasia. I'm also an 11th grader here at Linden Hall. This is my 6th year, and I have been boarding for all 6 years. Um, just like Farah, I also partake in a few clubs here: BSU, Black Student Union, DECA, Bell Choir, as well as well, I'm class president, so I don't know if that counts as a club, but then Clee Club as well, which is a community service club here at Linden Hall. And then Maya.
Hi, I'm Maya. I'm a senior this year. I am a day student. I've been attending Linden Hall for 7 years now. I live like 10 minutes down the road, and I'm also partaking in multiple extracurriculars, such as I am team captain of the equestrian team in competitions. I believe we are all, actually, the three of us are all in DECA. I am also getting my pilot's license, so I am doing that as a science credit. Student ambassador, of course, and I also tutor.
Perfect. Thank you guys for introducing yourselves. All right, so before the questions, I'd like to do a little bit of an introduction to Linden Hall. So for those who may be new to learning about Linden Hall, I'd love to give a brief overview of our school. So Linden Hall was founded in 1746, making it the oldest all-girls independent boarding and day school in the US, which I know is something that's very impressive and is really cool about the school. Um, Something that's my favorite part is that we're located in the charming town of Lidditz, PA, on our 49-acre campus, which is within walking of coffee shops and ice cream parlors and thrift stores and candy stores and so many things that make Lidditz unique. And I know that our boarding students definitely do enjoy walking through. We have 115 students enrolled this year in grades 6 through 12, and 30% of those students are day students, and the rest, that 70%, are our boarding students. Within Linden Hall, we represent over 20 Pennsylvania towns, 15 US states, and we represent over 30 international countries, which sometimes it definitely boggles my mind because that's very impressive. And it's something that I know I definitely enjoy hearing people's stories and stuff like that. Um, so some of our signature programs include STEM, the arts, public speaking, equestrian, like Maya said, aviation, and so many others that make Linden Hall definitely a unique school with many opportunities. All right, so that's a little bit about Linden Hall. Throughout this session, if you have any questions, feel free to submit those questions through the online chat, and we will make sure to answer those questions if we can with regards to time. But before that, I would like to ask Anastasia and Maya some questions of my own, starting with Anastasia, if we could. So my first question to you is, why did you decide to enroll at Linden Hall?
If I'm being completely honest, I was in 6th grade when I came to Lynn Hall, so I think it wasn't entirely my choice, but I've always been a very open person to trying new things and just to change in general. So I wasn't opposed to going to Lynn Hall. And when I came here, I absolutely loved it, honestly. Um, it was very different at first because I came from a predominantly Black school, that was a charter school, but, like, kind of more like a public school, and I came straight to, like, a private school that was, like, very diverse in like its all in its culture, but also like with different backgrounds and where people came from. And I think that honestly just it really opened my mind and like my perspective to lots of different demographics and people. And I think I've also become a very open-minded person since going to Linden Hall because of how many different friends I have. Like I have friends who are from China or friends who live here but are like from different states. And it really rounds you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I think that those are some great points. Maya, would you like to add on to that at all?
Yeah, sure. So I think the biggest thing for me, just like Anastasia, I came in my sixth grade year. I was really young. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. But I knew that the school had an equestrian program, and that was the biggest thing for me. I just wanted to ride horses and do that. And so that was really the key point for me. But I think for my parents as well, that they really liked about the school just right off the bat was how international it is. My mother was born and raised in Japan. I'm half Japanese. And I think that she was not necessarily worried, but she really wanted to push for having that positive like association with my culture and not going somewhere that it's not necessarily hindered, but it's looked down upon to be like different or not exactly from where everybody else is from. And that's something that's very different to Linden Hall than where not necessarily where I came from, but I think other schools that you would find near us or even within state. So.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing. Our next question that I have for you is, as you came into London Hall, did you feel welcome as a new student? Was it easy to make friends? How was that adjustment? Maya, if you'd like to start us off with that one, that'd be great.
Yeah, I actually found it really, really easy. Partially because as a sixth grader, and once you're like on the older side, I guess, your grades and scale grow. So for me, as a sixth grader, we had like six people in our class. So it was really, really small. So it was really easy to make connections within your grade just from day one. But I think another thing that's so great about going to such a small school is that you can make connections, like Anastasia said, from people from not just anywhere around the world that attend Linden Hall, but as well from like any age. And so like I have friends that are in sixth grade right now as a senior, and it's really cool because you kind of form that bond where, you're looking up to people. I remember in sixth grade, I had a best friend who was a senior and she would also horseback ride. So that's where that bond came from. But there's so many different outlets and ways that you can find those kind of people that you connect with. And that made life at Linden Hall a lot easier to get used to.
Perfect. I love that idea of sisterhood that you brought up. Anastasia, was your perspective a little different? How was that for you, your adjustment?
I would say honestly kind of the same. Coming into Linden Hall, like my sixth grade class, as well far you would know, it was a little bit bigger on the side because we had like I think 11 to 12 people. But even then, since you guys are all new, it's like you're sharing that same new experience with each other. So it's really easy, I feel like, to connect with people in your grade. And just like Maya said, with having friends from ranging from all grade levels, I think that's what I really like about Lynn Hall is that you're not confined to only your grade. Because as 11th grader, we stick as a class. And of course, as you get older, you branch out and have different levels of classes that you take. So for example, like I'll take pre-calc and like someone else who's still in my class will take multivariable or like AP calc. But it's still easy because you can make those connections in those classes. Like how Maya was saying that she made a connection in sixth grade to someone who was a 12th grader in equestrian. Linden Hall has so many clubs that we're able to branch out and mix and mingle with each other and not stay confined to ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. I think those are some great points that you both brought up. And I think something that Anastasia you touched upon was those different classes that you have in school. So, when you think about your average day at school, Linden Hall, what does that look like for you? If you'd like to answer that, first, Anastasia.
Um, I think just like thinking back to when I went to like a day school, it honestly is pretty much the same, I would say. Um, like I wake up, I go to school, do my classes, we do have a set schedule. So like every day I'll start with math and then end with my free block, and that won't change the day. What I do like about Linden Hall classes though is that our classes tend to be on the smaller side. So you get to have that like personable relationship with your teachers, and it's a lot more hands-on work than independent work.
Yeah, definitely. Um, that's definitely some true statements that you brought up. Maya, would you like to add on to that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, again, I was so young when I came to Linden Hall, so it's really hard to compare what I've had prior. But I think, again, the biggest thing was Linden Hall offers such good support when it comes to academic support, when it comes to trying to work with your schedule, when it comes to, sports events, clubs, extracurriculars. We had a DECA event and we got like a delay the next day because we got back so late. And there's things like that where if you contact your teachers in advance, they're so willing to work with you. And that's something that, I mean, again, I was in elementary school when I went to my previous school, but from who I'm talking to now with friends that have gone there previously, like that's not as applicable to as I feel is applicable to Linden Hall. So
Yeah, thank you. I feel like kind of like the overall message here is that, Linden Hall is very inclusive, and I think something that you brought up, Maya, is how like your teachers will definitely work with you throughout your day at school. So thank you for sharing. Um, the last question I had for you both, and I think Anastasia, if, you might have more experience with this, is what is life like in the dorm? As a boarding student, what are some of the weekend activities like? And I know Maya, maybe if you'd like to touch upon weekend activities from, a day student's perspective, that might also be really helpful. So, Anastasia, as you're the boarding student in the group, would you like to start us off with that?
Um, Dorm life here is very community based, and like we focus, so like as an RA this year, for example, we're focusing a lot on building community and building like personal relationships. And I think that being a boarder here, it definitely helps building those connections. And I know like a lot of what I've been saying has been about connections, but genuinely I feel like Linden Hall is about making connections with other people. You see so many people from so many different backgrounds, and they come to live with you all in like in a confined space. And I think you get to see how those different people live and how it's different from how you live, and you get to share experiences that you've had from growing up. And I also think that like the way that the dorm staff go about like helping children and like making sure that we're settled and feel welcome, especially at the beginning of the year, that is a big part of being a dorm student here. On the weekends, we have many weekend activities. So, for example, on campus weekend activities could involve community service, or it can involve arts and craft, baking in the dorms, stuff like that. And then we also have the opportunity to go outside of campus. So like we have food trips, sometimes to McDonald's or like Wingstop, or we have trips to the cinema or trips to like the mall. And I think that's a really great way to like help us get out and not just feel like we're stuck here, which I think the school does a really good job at.
Perfect. And adding on to that idea of weekend activities, Maya, as a day student, how does that pertain to being a day student? Like, can you interact with the other boarders during those weekend activities? How does that work?
yeah, for sure. So as a day student, I am able to sign up for those activities along with my other friends who are boarders. And again, everything that Anastasia touched upon, whether it's, making s'mores and like doing all these like weekend activities with these crafts and everything, I'm able to come onto campus for that day and do those activities. Another thing that's really great that I've utilized a lot is like having people come over for like sleepovers, and like I'm pretty sure I'm actually able to go to the dorms for sleepovers as well. And so being able to do that is actually a lot of fun. And so it's kind of, when you think about day students and boarders, it kind of has that barrier when you first think about it. But having those restrictions kind of taken off and being able to be like, hey, you can have a sleepover in the dorms. You're able to take people off of campus, and being able to do those as well as going on campus to see your friends kind of takes that barrier away. So
Perfect. Thank you both. I know that boarding is something that is very special to Linden Hall, so thank you for your intake on that. All right. So this is a point in the session during which we will be answering any live questions that you have. So if you have any, please feel free to submit them through the chat, and we can monitor them and answer any questions that you have, time permitting. Um, as we wait for those to start trickling in, I have a couple for you both. Um, so as a boarding student, as a day student, what are the community service opportunities available to students at Linden Hall? Maya, if you'd like to start us off with that one.
yeah, for sure. So at Linden Hall, we're settled right into Lidditz, which is this really cute little town. And within Lidditz, we have Lancaster. And so we have opportunities like we have Luther Acres. And so you're able to go to different organizations that are either, you can go for like nonprofit and you can go for volunteer work. And I'm pretty sure there's on-campus stuff as well. Like I know from personal experience, people have signed up to go to the barn, and you can actually like work at the barn for a couple hours and you can get your community service done there. And I know that we need a certain number of hours for internal, which is like on campus, as well as external. And so Lennon Hall does a really good job at trying to equal out how many hours that you can get within, especially external, because that's what's I would consider to be harder, especially as a boarding student. As a day student, it's pretty easy to get to those places. But Linden Hall also, and I'm sure Anastasia can talk about this more, but Linden Hall does a good job at transporting you to those places as well. So
I agree. They do a good job at transporting us to those places. Like for example, I'm just recently started volunteering at a hospital nearby. It's like 10 minutes away. And every week, Mrs. Snyder, which is the RA head person, if that makes sense, like the leader of student life, at but dorm life, she'll make sure that like I'll always have a driver to take me there and back, or like a dorm parent to take me there and back. We also have, speaking on community service opportunities here, I think Linden Hall does a good job at making sure that we have a lot of options for community service. So like for example, a way that you can get internal hours is just by being a tutor to someone. Or this past weekend, Mrs. Workman, which is one of the art teachers here, she was hosting this community service to make a bowl, and that counted as external service, even though it was on campus. And so I think that's what Maya was talking about, like getting ways for us to do extra community service, but also like keeping it as a community activity.
Perfect. Thank you both. I know that community service is an integral part of Linden Hall, so thank you for your input on that. All right, so we have our first question in the chat, and that is, what type of academic support do students receive at Linden Hall? Anastasia, if you'd like to kick us off on that one.
I said before, for the community service, I know that tutoring was one of them. We have tutoring options for almost every class, even our AP classes. So I think that's one of the opportunities that I think Linden Hall students get, especially since it's a student tutor, like one of your peers. It's more personal, and you're able to like, I feel like you're able to learn better with someone who you like and know. But we also have power hour, or like student life hours. So like after schools on Tuesdays and Thursdays, or whatever day that teacher picks, they will usually have a 20-minute time period after school until around 4 o'clock, so that you are able to go in and meet with that teacher. And then also during a power hour or like a music block, if you don't have music, you're also able to schedule a time to meet with that teacher that during that time. And you can just go over like basically anything you want, ask them questions, and they'll be more than welcome to like answer them for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Anastasia. Maya, I know you mentioned during your introduction that you do tutoring at Linden Hall. Would you like to speak on that kind of experience at Linden Hall?
yeah, for sure. So I, as a 12th grader, and such a small school, I know everybody by name at this point, and I'm friends with majority of the people at school. And so when you first sign up to go tutoring and you're like, "Hey, like I want to tutor blah blah blah," and you get told, "Hey, you're tutoring this person," you automatically 99% of the time have already heard of this person and know this person. So getting their contact information and just seeing them in the hallways make it so much easier to be able to find times to meet with them. It makes it much easier. Like they'll send me like pictures of questions that they don't know how to answer, and I'll like call them for like 10 minutes if they want. And so obviously this is for a person to person base, but it's really easy to be able to find time to work with them because we're given so many opportunities to be able to see them in the hallway or have classes with them even. Of course, it depends on like the age and everything, but I mean, I tutor some kids that are in the same class or in the same grade as me. So it makes it really easy to be able to find them and make really nice and good connections. And I think one thing as well that Linden Hall does really well when it comes to support is our teachers are so amazing with responding to emails. And I think that's something that's really hard when you go to a bigger school, but I'll send an email to my teacher at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and they'll respond within 30 minutes. And they're really great at making accommodations, they're really great at getting back to you. And I think that's just a really great part about Linden Hall as well. So
Perfect. Thank you both. Um, and I feel like a question kind of piggybacking off of that idea of academics is what is your homework load like at Linden Hall? Maya, if you'd like to start us off on that one.
yeah, could you like elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, so just in general, what would you say like your average amount of homework you get per night is when as a middle schooler and a high schooler, how does that kind of differ between grades?
Yeah, for sure. I think especially in middle school, right? And I was first starting off in sixth grade. I had a lot more on my plate just coming into Linden Hall because we had that like social aspect that I was a little worried about as a new student. I was an athlete and I still am. And so all of these things considered, I was really worried about the workload. Although I find the workload to be manageable, sometimes the material can be a lot, but again, we have those support systems that make it a lot easier to be able to handle. And I think lastly, one thing that's so important to like keep in mind too is like teachers are able to give you like access to resources outside of their time, right? And so being able to go in for those office hours and being able to sit down with them and schedule other times, like if you have a free block, you're able to find a time that you're both free. They'll be more than happy to like sit down during like a lunch period and work with you, right? And so again, like even though like you have so many extracurriculars, you have sports, you have clubs, you're taking 5, 6 classes that are really difficult, you'll be able to get that homework done. And so like again, and it also depends on the workload that you choose to have. But as long as I think if you could stay organized, you're perfectly fine. I think it's 100% manageable. So
Perfect. Thank you for that. And Anastasia, I know that, you're in your junior year, which is often regarded as the hardest year in terms of academics. So, in your perspective, how has the academic and homework load been for you?
It's definitely manageable, I would say. This is a college preparatory school, so I think compared to a public school, for example, we will probably will have a little bit more homework. But if you ask for help, your teachers are more than happy to give you the help that you need. If you ask for an extension on an assignment, your teacher will probably ask you why, but they'll more than likely like give you the extension, but just of course they still want like a well-rounded answer of why you need the extension, of course. But teachers here are more than happy to help you in whatever you need, whether that be with study materials, staying organized, knowing how to time manage your time, etc. And I would say on average I only get maybe like 2 hours of homework a night, and I think that's pretty good, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for your input on that question. Another question I had in regards to academics is, um, in both of your introductions, you mentioned like the multitude of clubs that you both partake in. So, as a Linden Hall student, how do you balance this academic workload and your extracurricular commitments? And are there any resources or people that you can turn to help you with these? Maya, if you'd like to start us off with that one.
Yeah, for sure. So I think the biggest one that I'm partaking in is horseback riding and being the captain for my equestrian team. And so my co-captain, who is the middle school captain, which is Zoya, which is an 11th grader as well, we kind of turn to each other for support. And so that's a really big structural like not comfort, but I guess it's just a really big part about Linden Hall as well is that you can depend on other people, right? And you can see that within the academics and you can see that with teachers and students as well. But I think extracurriculars is so interesting because you meet so many different people. And so being able to lean on different people, and of course, other people are going to have different positions than you. But I think the biggest part about it is like the teamwork part of extracurriculars is not just about, the sport or like the getting the craft done or like whatever. But I think being able to have that leadership position also allows you to have a support system within that club or that sport or the extracurricular. And so being able to have that really helps when you're in a tight spot with, oh, you have like a calculus test tomorrow, but you also have to like think of like a schedule of what you want for the next meeting. Like, oh, can you help me with that? Right. And it's really nice to be able to have those connections as well as that support system to be able to do that.
Perfect. Anastasia, would you like to add on to that?
I agree, especially when you were talking about how you look to a peer more than like an adult. Not saying the adult won't be there, but a peer is also really good to have with you to because they know more about what you're doing more than likely. Like for example, me and Farah are co-presidents with Malia for Club Med, and so like once a week we'll like text in a chat, hey, what do you guys want to do? And it's a lot easier, I think, than going through a teacher, only because as a student, you know what other students like to see. And so I think that's really good for like putting out connections as well with your peers and like knowing the structure of a club or just in general your time.
Great. Thank you for that. It looks like we have another question in the chat. That is, are there any art clubs at school? Maya, would you like to answer that question?
Yeah, so I think we have a like physical, like visual art one, and that is run by Miss Workman, and we also have some theater ones as well. Within the arts, of course, you have different kinds of music, you have theater, you have visual and physical art. And so, especially in the music area, we have different groups as well, such as we have like orchestra, we have choir, we have some a cappella groups. And they also perform in what we have like is a Vespers for like Christmas time, which is our concert. And there's also opportunities outside of those clubs to perform for our musicals and plays that I think we have two per year. And so one in each semester. And so if you're a singer, of course, theater, choir, all of that. If you want visual arts, we have a pretty big arts program actually. And so we have different forms of art, photography, ceramics, drawing, painting. And so yeah, I'm not a big artist, so I can't talk a ton about it, but we do have a very big art program. So
Perfect. Thank you for answering that question, Maya. All right. So another question that I have is I kind of alluded to the traditions of Linden Hall and how we've kind of been around for a while. So in your time at Linden Hall, what tradition has been your favorite that we partake in? Anastasia, if you'd like to start us off with that.
I actually have two. I hope I'm not stealing yours by saying this, but my first one is definitely Vespers. Everyone, anyone you can tell around this time of year, I always am so excited for Vespers. I'm a choir and bell choir student here. Like I participate in those clubs. And then also like another club that we have here is Museo, which is more of a smaller ensemble. But I genuinely love the energy that Vespers brings to the Linden Hall community. It's so festive. Everyone in choir and orchestra get to like play pieces together. Like last year, we did a Hallelujah chorus together, or in one year we did Winter Wonderland, sorry. And I just think it's so great to have everyone, especially in the church. The church is so beautiful. If you guys don't know, we have like this Moravian church by our school. And so when we had COVID, it was harder to put the everyone in that smaller space. Well, it's a bigger space than our chapel, but just to put everyone in such a confined space. But ever since last year, which was the first year that we actually had Vespers in the church since COVID, it's such a beautiful space. The decorations are beautiful. Everything about Vespers is beautiful, and I love the time of the year. And then my second one is definitely Gretna Day. I love Gretna Day because I love going roller skating and hanging out with my friends and hiking and being outside and all of that.
Perfect. I love both of those as well. Maya, is there one that has been your favorite over the years?
Yes. Okay. So I was gonna say Gretna Day, but other than Gretna Day, I don't know if this is like a tradition, but the seniors, we typically throw on the haunted house. Now, unfortunately, we did not throw one this year, but this has been a favorite of mine. Every year the senior class throws on a haunted house in the creepy old basement, and it is actually really scary. And we think it's haunted. And it's so fun. I think it's like a big way to end off the year, not end off the year, but that semester, I guess, in that Halloween spirit. And it's really fun to be able to like go with your friends and stuff like that. So
Perfect. I love it. Thank you, Maya. So along the line of favorites, there's another question in the chat, and that is, what has been your favorite class so far at Linden Hall? Maya, would you like to start us off?
yeah, so I would probably go with my philosophy class for this year. It's nothing fancy. It's not well, actually it is honors, but it's not like an AP class or anything like that, but it is such a fun class. It's taught by Mr. Ronderis, who is I would say overall probably one of the top teachers that we have at Linden Hall. He was just amazing teacher. He's so funny. And we are actually, I love one of our units that we're on actually right now is politics. And so we have a final paper. It's only semester class, but it's so much fun. We talk about ethics and politics. And it's a big like debating class, and I love that class.
Great. Glad to hear it. Anastasia, what about you? What's your favorite class been so far?
There's actually two classes. They're a little bit older, and I'm not sure if they're offered here anymore. Well, one of them is. One of them is civics. If you when you take civics in eighth grade with Miss Oxenford, it will literally change your life. Like Miss Oxenford is such a great teacher, and the way that she runs the course with making it like an interactive course and hands-on with lots of group work, it's really fun to learn about like the economic state of our world right now and like politics and all of that. And then another one was when I was in seventh grade, with Dr. Mallon, Women in History. That class I feel is so important to be taught here at Linden Hall, especially being an all-girls school. You get to learn all about these different women who did so many great things, were based upon like their artwork, and like people made artworks about like their body and their contour, or like highlighting the different characteristics of women. And I think that was a really interesting thing to learn about going here because it opened my mind to like all these different pioneering women in history.
Great. Thank you, Anastasia. And I love that idea of the unity we have in being an all-girls school at Linden Hall. So thank you for mentioning that. So we're going to continue with this idea of favorites, but kind of in a different regard. So, what is your favorite food in the dining hall? And then Anastasia, if you could touch upon kind of your experience with the dining hall, what's the food like? Are there options for people who are vegetarian or who have an allergy? And what's that like for being a boarder at Linden Hall? If you'd like to start us off.
I would say my favorite food here is, oh, it's hard. definitely top three is General Tso's. They have really good General Tso's. Um, I think it's honestly not just my favorite. I think it's a lot of people's favorites here too as well. And the school is, although it's my favorite, the school is always open to taking feedback from us or like wanting suggestions, I guess, if that makes sense, like for what we would like to see in a dining hall. And I think that's a really good thing that our school offers. We do have vegetarian and vegan options as well. The school does a very good job at making sure that people who don't eat meat or have a gluten allergy or who are vegan, they're able to eat and enjoy the food as well. So like if they're making, for example, a pasta that has a meat in it, they'll have an option that won't have meat in it or won't have a gluten in it just to accommodate those other people.
Perfect. Thank you, Anastasia. And then Maya, in terms of being a senior at Linden Hall, what are some of the different privileges you get in terms of your lunch options? And also, let's say you would like to pack your lunch. What are some of the how can you go about doing that at Linden Hall?
Yeah, for sure. So I oftentimes pack my lunch. I think it's a really great way, especially as a day student. If like I'm really picky with my food. Not saying that the dining hall food isn't good because it's actually really good. I'm not gonna lie. But I do pack my lunch often and it's really good. We have access to microwaves. We have fridges. Like I store my lunch in the library fridge sometimes, and that's really convenient. And again, like there's I believe there's a microwave like in Lower Honeycoat, which is like a lower part of our dining hall. And so being able to have that is really, really helpful if you pack your lunch and you want to heat it up. And then another thing that I've been, as a senior, been doing a lot is going off campus for lunch. Yay. Um, I One big thing for me is I am a heavy, heavy coffee drinker. And so I will go on campus, and some people do actually get real food and go get lunch, but often I will go get coffee. And so that's been something that is such a great privilege for me as a senior. And that's really fun, especially because I have a car on campus because I drive now. And so I'm able to go with like my friends, and that's like a really nice break in the middle of the day for me.
Perfect. Thank you, Maya. Um, so another question we have in the chat is, what do you think the benefits are for attending an all-girls school? Maya, I know you kind of touched upon the idea of switching to an all-girls school. So would you like to start us off with that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the biggest thing is okay, I was gonna say I have no shame, but that's a little bit of a stretch. Like I have built my confidence so much. I had such a big fear, even like when I was way younger, I had such a big fear of public speaking. And so again, we have these integrated ideologies such as we have like speeches every year that we're required to do as upperclassmen. And so being able to have those experiences and like being supported by other like women and girls around me is so, so, so like important. And I think that that has helped my confidence so much. And so I just think it's such a great experience. And they're like, at first I was like, oh, like, what is that kind of dynamic? What, like, is that weird? Like, I feel like it's not as like much of a common thing anymore to attend an all-girls school. And so when I first came, I was like, oh, this is weird. But I've actually grown to love it. And yeah, it's just built my confidence up a lot.
Perfect. I'm glad to hear it. Anastasia, what has your experience been in terms of these benefits of being at an all-girls school?
Everything that Maya said, I 100% agree. Especially being a boarder here, I think I think coming into Little Hall at first, I was a little bit hesitant on being a boarder because my home is in Boston, so I'm like 6 hours away, and I wasn't sure what type of support I was going to have here. But not only do we have I mean, of course, we're all girls school, but we also have a lot of staff who are women as well. And so it's really helpful to like look up to someone and see that like just get that type of support from like someone who is like you, like the woman, you know what I mean? And then also I feel like it's a lot less pressure inducing environment because of the fact that we don't have boys, I guess. I don't want to sound like I'm pushing the species away, but I just feel like it's a lot easier to navigate in an environment where you have people that look like you because you're able to build your confidence, like Maya said, and like learn how to pave your way through a world that I feel like is sometimes against us. And I think it's a very good um connection inducing environment and like very big and knit community.
I think one thing I do want to add that I like forgot to touch upon as well is like not necessarily all the time, but I feel like as an all-girls school, right, like our curriculum is somewhat around like touching upon those females in like history that weren't, talked about enough. And we learn about society. Like in my philosophy class, we touched upon like women in society and like different aspects as being a female in this world. And I think that's really interesting. And so that's part of our curriculum as well that I think is again really, really important and special to Linden Hall.
Great. Thank you for those important opinions. So I think a great follow-up question that is here in the chat is, do you get to see boys at all? And I think this is, especially like as a border Anastasia, like, do you, are there any experiences or activities at Linden Hall in which you can encounter seeing boys?
So Linden Hall has this thing called brother schools, and it's not like they're your actual brother, of course. So like one of the schools that we will partner with often is CFS, and not only will like, for example, we'll invite them to our school dances, but they'll invite us to their school dances. And I know like this year starting our BSU club has started not only with CFS but with other co-ed schools as well and all boys schools and all girls schools as well. We've started making connections with those schools. So like for example, this past 2 Sundays ago, we had a BSU event and like we saw boys there. It wasn't, of course, it wasn't for boys, but I'm just saying like we do interact with boys and we're not just combined in like an all girl space.
Perfect. Thank you for answering that question, Anastasia. Um, all right. So another question that I have is, have you been encouraged to try new things as a student at Linden Hall? I think you both have, you've been here for a while, so have you been, like, were there any opportunities that um were available to you, and was Linden Hall kind of like an encouraging space to try new things? Maya, if you'd like to start with that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there were so many things that I don't think I would have done if I hadn't come to Linden Hall. When it comes to getting my pilot's license, achieving so many things in horseback riding, being able to be a student ambassador, doing all these things. But I think the biggest thing for me is, especially now that, I'm applying to college, I have to figure out what I want to do, what I want to study. And so taking a business class, I think last year was really the biggest key for me. And then also being a part of DECA, which is a business competition and entrepreneurship. And so being able to figure out, oh, like this is what I want to do, and having clubs that, we have like a math club, we have a book club, like all these things, which are great, but these are like core like subjects, I guess. And so a study of business isn't something that you can find easily in a high school setting, I guess. And so being able to also have the opportunity to not only take a class that is, surrounding business and either economics or any of these big topics within business, but as well as the clubs that surround it. And right, I'm a part of DECA and I've learned what I want to do. And that's actually led me to being able to intern for a private equity company this past summer. And finally, like understanding, like, oh, this is what I want to study, this is what I want to do. And so I think, like, again, like that opportunity, I would not have taken it if it wasn't for Linden Hall. And Yeah, I think that's one of the best things because we have so many connections, the school to the outside world, as well as just like professionals in general. And so I think, from taking that class with Miss Solomon, our Dean of Students, she's wonderful, to being a part of DECA, to taking that internship, and all those things combined has really led me into becoming the person I am and understanding what I want to study for the rest of my life, basically.
Great. Thank you, Maya. Anastasia, what is your take on that question?
I 100% agree, especially like, for example, with DECA, it's a really great way to branch out and meet other people. And I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of clubs here that have the same opportunity. So, like, for example, in Club Med, going out to see that live surgery every year, I think that is such I think it's an opportunity that not a lot of other schools would get to have. And I think that's like something that's really special to Linden Hall and having us be able to like see other opportunities and go out in the world, especially like with our all school field trips, for example, how last year, how we had the DC trip and this year we're having the Philly trip. They're very keen on opening us to like history of like where we are and making sure that we're still learning in environments. We still have like a academic environment, even though like we're having fun, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you, Anastasia. Maya, something that I kind of wanted to touch upon that you kind of alluded to was the idea of college counseling. So what does that look like at Linden Hall? When does that process start? As a senior, you're in the process of applying for colleges. So what does that kind of process look like as a whole?
Yeah, for sure. So I feel like you finally start going to actually college counseling classes once a week. It's when you become a junior. And I guess you guys are in that stage right now, but essentially we have a college counseling course and you take it once a week. And you basically sit down with our college counselor, Miss Smith, who's wonderful and we love her. And you basically sit down with her as a class and you talk through like what are the steps into, doing our college applications? What are we looking for in a college? And she'll give you like a list that she thinks that is great for you for schools. She'll help you out with, like if you need like financial aid documents, like she'll help you with that. She'll help you setting up accounts, setting up new email accounts, like all these things, reaching out to professors and stuff like that. And so again, like junior year is like the first time that you're really starting to think about where do you want to go? What do you want to study? How do you want to do this? And then as a senior this year, our major first deadline was November 1st. And so everybody was basically going to class for college counseling once a week up until that November 1st deadline. And so that was just work days that we were able to just get our essays done. And what was really nice is that as a school, we also proctor the PSATs as well as the SATs. But we did have a PSAT a couple, I think like a month ago, a couple weeks ago, something like that. And so during that time, obviously, as seniors didn't take the PSATs. And so that morning, we were actually able to have like a writing like block for a couple hours. And it was really great because we actually got the opportunity to work with all of our English teachers as we like sat down and just like worked on our college essays. And so that's just one of many like ways, times, and blocks that they give us to be able to work and basically get these applications in, which is super, super helpful.
Great. Glad to hear it, Maya. Thank you for answering that question. All right, so it looks like we have time for one more question. One that I have is, what overall is your favorite thing about Linden Hall? Anastasia, would you like to start us off with that one?
I would say my favorite thing about Linden Hall is what is it? Wait, can it be like a specific like event or does it have to be like a characteristic of it?
I think whatever vision you see fit.
Um, I think one thing that I really like about Linden Hall is that we value community time. So, for example, Mondays and Fridays we have assembly. Tuesdays we have advisory. Thursdays we'll have class meeting, which is like just specific meetings with your class, and then Wednesdays we'll have chapel. I think that's a really great way to incorporate the whole community and really like touch on the aspect of a close-knit all-girls school. On Mondays and Fridays, we'll have speeches, and a lot of those times we'll see speeches that can connect to audience members. So for example, a speech that was a speech that went on this past week was one of our assist students, and she talked about being new at school. And then she said at the end of her speech, and I know a lot of you here are new to Linden Hall, and I think that we see a pattern of that in our school speeches. And so I think that we do a really great job at valuing our community time, getting together as a school, and just being a community in general.
Perfect. And then Maya, as you um rounding off your last year at Linden Hall, looking back, what has been your favorite thing about your experience here?
It's so cliche. I feel like everybody talks about it, but I think it's so important is the people in the community. I have made so many friends over my 7 years here. I don't actually want to graduate. I love Linden Hall. I've enjoyed my time here so much. I've made so many friends. I have so many connections, not just people of my own age, people who are from all around the world, people who are younger, older than me, people in the professional world now. And so being able to have those connections, even with professors and teachers who have left, I'm still in touch with them over like social media and stuff. And so just being able to have those connections is so important to me. And I think it's so helpful. And I love, oh my gosh, I love Linden Hall. I love being able to have that sense of community to come back to. And so even as I am graduating soon and being able to look back on my time at Linden Hall, the biggest thing that I will remember, I think, is the community at Linden Hall.
Can I add to that a little bit? When you were talking about people in your community and having friends from like all throughout grades, I think that is also definitely a good part about Linden Hall. Like for example, Al can have friends who are from seniors even after they graduated. Since Linden Hall is so small, but like we're so important. It's so important to like make those strong personal connections. You will still be friends with those people who are like in their fourth year of college, and it's so great to like get that personal experience and like text them and be like, hey, how's college going? And especially as a junior now, it's really helpful because I have those friends who are in college and like they can tell me about their college experience and that transition from Linden Hall to whatever college they're going to. And I think that's a really good part about it.
Thank you both for your input on that question and for answering all the questions that I asked you both tonight. If you have any unanswered questions, those can be forwarded to the admissions office, who will receive it and respond to those questions. As we think about rounding off our session tonight, I'd love Anastasia and Maya if you could join me in just giving a piece of advice for any new student joining the Linden Hall community. So I'll give you both a second to think about that while I start off. So I think in my opinion, what I would say is don't be afraid to be who you are and to share it. I think an important thing about being a school that represents over 30 territories and countries is that we're so open to different experiences, and we love to learn and share about our students, whether it's International Night or, for example, the fundraiser we just had last week about our cultures. I think Linden Hall is such a welcoming community, and we love to hear what you have to say, whether that's starting a club that relates to your culture or speaking up in assembly. So um, I think my piece of advice is as you come to Linden Hall, don't forget to be who you are, and don't feel scared to speak up and share it.
I can go next if that's okay. This kind of elaborates on yours, but it's genuinely don't be afraid to ask questions. And that's whether it's in a classroom setting or genuinely just like hang out with friends in a circle and like just talking and hang out. I think how far I was saying that we come from so many different backgrounds. It's not uncommon to see that like for that you won't know a certain thing about someone's culture. And I think I of course phrase it in a respectful way, but don't be afraid to ask questions. Like you will learn so much about not only that culture but also about that person and how they operate and how they work, and just like about like different norms that they've had and switching to like of course, an American community. And just like you can help them navigate, especially like and build those stronger connections because of you asking questions. So that's my piece of advice. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah, I think mine is actually pretty similar as well. I'd say just say yes. Try and say yes to as much as you can, especially for your first year. When it comes to building those relationships, trying to find your grounding, say yes to that office hour, to trying to get to know your teacher better. Say yes to grabbing coffee with like your new friends or with your roommate. Say yes to those like extracurricular activities. If you want to try tennis, go try tennis. Like, I think just confining to yourself is okay, not to be harsh, but could possibly be one of the worst ways to start off, I feel like. And so being able to branch out, and you don't have to be extroverted to be able to do that, but just keep an open mind about trying to find those people, trying to find things that you connect with at school, I think is the biggest and most important thing, because there's always something that you will be able to find that you enjoy, that you're good at, and find people that you enjoy spending time with.
Perfect. Thank you, Maya. And thank you both for joining me today as we conducted our live Q&A. To all who are attending, don't forget, Linden Hall is actively accepting applications for January 2025 entry and August 2025 entry. We hope you can join us on campus, and we wish you all a great night. Thank you for coming. All right.